very shortly. Okay, so I would like to call our meeting to order. My name is David McCain. I'm the chair of the Sustainability Commission and like to welcome all of you to the April 2022 meeting of the City of Flagstaff Sustainability Commission. Thank you, commissioners, for being here and for all the work that you've been doing. And also big thanks to sustainability staff and also welcome to all of our visitors. So I'd like to start our second item is the roll call. So commissioners, please unmute yourselves. And when I call your name, please indicate that you're here. Chair McCain, present. Vice Chair White.
Present.
Commissioner Steiger.
Present.
Commissioner Daly. Commissioner Conkle.
Present.
Commissioner McCormick. Okay, and I believe Commissioner Conkle is going to read our mission, vision, and land acknowledgement. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thanks so much. The vision of the Sustainability Commission is that the City of Flagstaff is a culture and community that thrives in response to the climate crisis. Our mission is to advise sustainability section staff on matters related to climate and sustainability, support community projects through neighborhood sustainability grants, and provide feedback to the City Council on sustainability issues. Our land acknowledgement includes that the Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Chair McCain, you are muted.
Chair McCain, we can't hear you.
Excuse me. Public comment number 4. At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject within their jurisdiction that is not scheduled before the commission on that day. Due to open meeting laws, the commission cannot discuss or act on items presented during this portion of the agenda. To address the commission on an item that is on the agenda, please use the Teams chat function. Simply type in public comment to indicate to the chair that you would like to comment. The chair will then recognize you when it is time for public comment, and staff will unmute your microphone if needed. Do we have any public comment? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to move to item 5, approval of minutes from our March 24th meeting. Commissioners, is there any feedback on the minutes, changes, recommendations, or a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve if there aren't any comments.
All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Steiger. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the March 24th minutes that was put forward by Commissioner Steiger, seconded by Commissioner Conkle. Is there any discussion? All right, I would like to put this motion to a vote. So again, we have a motion to approve the March 24th, 2022 minutes, and the motion was put forward by Commissioner Steiger, seconded by Commissioner Conkle. Commissioners, I invite you to open up your mics, and all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Okay, motion passes. So now I'd like to move to item 6, into our business item 6A. This is the Joint Housing Sustainability Commission meeting debrief. So as you know, our last month's meeting was a meeting with the Housing Commission to talk about ways that we might collaborate, in particular with the climate neutrality plan and the 10-year housing plan that the Housing Commission developed. And at that meeting, we didn't have time for any questions. So there's a couple functions of this item, this agenda item. One is, commissioners, if you have any questions about the content of that meeting, and looks like Jenny Neiman is here with us. So if there are any questions that you have about that meeting, I'll open the floor for those in a moment. And then there was also a discussion that I attended, and it looks like we have a number of housing commissioners with us. Thank you so much for joining us. They had their meeting at 1 today, and they also talked about the presentation, the joint meeting that we had in March, and they had a number of questions, and there was a discussion there. So I would like to provide a brief summary of that discussion and see if there are any other comments from the commission about that, and we might have time to see if there are additional comments that the housing commissioners might want to add. So first off, sustainability commissioners, did any of you have any questions or comments left over from the joint meeting in March? Commissioner Conkle, go ahead.
Thanks. And I'm sorry if this was addressed at the end of the meeting last month, but I'm just wondering if there are specific action items that we could be working on as a commission for the next few months.
Do you mean relevant specifically to the collaboration, or just in general for the climate neutrality plan, Commissioner?
Relevant to the collaboration.
Yeah, my memory is that we didn't have any decided ones. My memory of the collaboration is that there's an intention to have a joint meeting once a year and have the chairs connect. And I think there is certainly space for a joint working group or other activities like that, but I don't think anything was decided.
Okay, thanks so much for that refresher.
Any additional comments from the commission? Okay, well, I'd like to relay some, just a brief summary of what I observed at the Housing Commission meeting today. And again, I think we have a number of housing commissioners with us, and I'll invite them if they have anything else to add. I think the thrust of this agenda item for the Housing Commission was a number of questions directed at the sustainability staff, and really looking at that collaboration and how to work together, in particular with the housing plan and the climate neutrality plan. There were a couple process concerns that the commission raised around wanting to have been involved earlier in the discussions around the sustainable building incentive. And my understanding is that there was actually a request from a builder, and it was pushed through rather quickly, and the community development director apologized and sounded like he had hoped in the future definitely to bring things earlier. So that was one concern that was voiced. And another concern about wanting more interaction with the section around the bond initiatives that the sustainability section brought forward. around housing. And then there were a number of content issues around the climate neutrality plan. Why now? Why a real push right now? Why does our work even matter relative to what other communities might or might not be doing? And also a real focus on the question of new homes and electric new homes and questions about affordability for those net zero homes. And I thought Jenny and Ramon and Nicole answered those questions at the meeting, I think, in a pretty effective way. And then there was an interest in specific forms of collaboration, specific to issues of density, land use, and parking. And one announcement that was made that will support those collaborations going forward is that the city does have a new zoning code administrator. That position's been open for a while, and these issues around density, land use are directly related to the zoning code. So there's a hope that as the zoning code administrator gets acclimated to their position, they'll open up space for more discussions and more work on those particular topics. So I invite any housing commissioner that is here, if you would be interested in providing feedback about that meeting or any other comments. And you can raise your hand. Actually, we have a small enough group that if you raise your hand, I can see that and call on you. Okay, well, that was the content of that meeting, and I don't think we really have clear action items for how to move forward with the collaboration, other than I believe there is an agreement to have another joint meeting and have the staff or the chairs connect. So I think we'll be updating the commissions on those communications, and certainly getting together to see what we can continue to do to make those plans mesh together. All right, so let's move to business item 6B, and the Flagstaff Regional Plan update. Is Jordan Hollinger with us? Or maybe Sarah?
Hi, Chair McCain.
Hector?
This is Sarah Ductor. I'm here
Hey,
today
Sarah.
to present this. How are you doing?
Good, good to see you. Nice background.
Thanks. It's my picture, so helps me remember that I can go on vacation sometimes. All right, so thank you all for your time tonight. I am going to make a slight deviation from the process that we had laid out in your memo that accompanied this presentation, and I'll explain why in just a minute, but just pay close attention. We're gonna do a small pivot tonight. But my name is Sarah Ductor. I'm the Comprehensive and Neighborhood Planning Manager for the City of Flagstaff and the Project Manager for the Flagstaff Regional Plan. And we are beginning the process of the plan update. It feels sometimes like it was yesterday that it was 2014 and the Regional Plan 2030 was ratified, and we were all very happy that a 5-year process that had been pretty exhausting was over. And so here we are in 2022, starting a process again and hoping to get it done in 2 years. And so we are working, we sort of have had a slow rollout, which I'll talk about. And now we are hoping to move forward and build energy around our collaboration pretty quickly. And this is what I call the tour de commissions, which is we go around like it's a big long tour and we visit every commission that will sit with us. And so thank you for being a part of this today. Your presentation today is very similar to the ones other commissions get, but there's several slides focused on the mission of your commission. So today we are going to cover what's the regional plan, some 101. I know Chair McCain and others, some of you are very familiar and some of you may be less familiar. So I'll go over that, and then what is actually in the regional plan related to sustainability, what's being done to update the regional plan. And then we were going to do a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats assessment, which we had sent out ahead of time in the hopes that you would fill in your brainstorm ahead of time, but not everyone was able to do it. And so I think instead we'll just troubleshoot and see if anyone's having trouble accessing the digital whiteboard and if I can help with any of that. But we will actually leave this open for the next month and come back in May and then actually go through the rating part of the exercise. So I'll go over what the exercise is, but we won't actually do it at today's meeting. So this is the pyramid slide that everyone knows is in all of my PowerPoints. If you see me at any meetings, it is the hierarchy of planning documents that
We're not seeing your slide.
Oh, you're not.
Sarah?
Thank you. Is it up there now?
Yes, it is.
Aha. Thank you. It must have blipped out after I tried to hit share. Okay. So this is the triangle the triangle slide that I've shown over and over and over again. It shows the regional plan at the top being the most broad in terms of content, but also the least amount of detail. But it covers a very large area and it has many purposes overall that we'll go over a little bit. But under that, we have specific plans and master plans and other kinds of things we call plans that are more strategic documents, but don't actually fully implement. So the carbon neutrality plan is a great example of that. It is a strategic plan that the city has, and the Southside neighborhood plan is an example of a specific plan. And those nest into the regional plan, but also support a more detailed and thoughtful implementation of the regional plan. That's really their purpose. And so implementation happens through, like you were just discussing with your overarching emphasis that you're sharing with the Housing Commission, zoning code updates, engineering standards, the capital improvement program, the annual budget. Those are all ways in which the regional plan gets implemented. And also there's a lot of private decisions that get made because people see what the city is planning for the community's future, and they make complementary decisions in a lot of cases. So this plan is unique because besides the city charter, it is the only part of city policy that is ratified by voters. That makes it very important. It has to go to a ballot and people get a chance to vote it. Yes, we like the plan. No, we don't. So we don't just have to please 7 council members. We have to please 77,000 residents of Flagstaff, which makes consensus and compromise and collaboration the core of how we have to work through this process. But we always keep in mind these purposes. It supports our long-range land use decisions and our policy making. The plan also, in the background, provides these incredibly important scenarios where there's a unified vision of what future land uses can look like so that we can get the ADEQ 100 water supply designation, which Flagstaff chooses to get voluntarily, and so that we can support transportation modeling. If you've ever seen some of the transportation modeling that Metro Plan does, they often have a projected traffic of 2045 that is based on a trip generation model that is built off our regional plan decisions. So that is not all out of the brain of David Wessel, which is a very bright brain with a lot of good ideas. It is fully grounded in this regional planning document. So we can make a lot of strategic choices here that make a difference in both of those processes, which are highly tied to sustainability, simply by making stronger land use decisions in the regional plan. For the Coconino County, which participates in this process with us, they amend their county comprehensive plan with this document, so it is adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and county residents do not get to vote on the regional plan. But their comprehensive plan does not have maps of land uses, and so this provides a unified regional land use map. And this is what it looks like today. When my daughter was young, she called it the bubble map, but the bubbles are really our activity centers, which will be a big part of what we take a hard look at. The 2014 ratified regional plan was the first one to identify activity center locations in the city. Prior to that, it was just conceptual and talked about in the plan, but they weren't actually places we were trying to build. And so that placemaking was very critical to this last update. And I think we've learned a lot. We will probably take a very hard look at activity centers, where they are, where we want them to be, and how they function. In addition, we have a very large area of the community that is listed currently as a suburban neighborhood. We will want to look very closely at what the criteria we put down for a suburban neighborhood and how much suburban neighborhood there should be and where. Of course, we're always constrained by existing conditions, and in some ways we're constrained by entitlements that have already been given to property owners because of Prop 207. And those are going to be conversations that we work through in a scenario planning process that we will be hiring a consultant for this summer. So the regional plan had a couple purposes that were given to us in 2014. Holding government accountable. It's a very strong one and one we've really strived to achieve in the last 8 years. Guiding physical and economic development, another one we've worked hard to achieve. There had been a desire to see the plan establish priorities for public action. I think that's an area in which it has been weak. And I'll explain why in a minute, but there's been a lot of other efforts that have helped us prioritize, but also we have a lot of priorities still. And so we will really need to think about how prioritization works in the regional plan update. Also, as I said, there are a lot of private property owners who look at the regional plan and think about what they want to do with their property based on the regional plan. They also encourage predictable decision-making. And I think because of the lack of ability to have clearer priorities, the plan has not sometimes been successful and we get the things we're looking for and ask for. And sometimes we haven't quite met that mark. So part of the reason it has trouble being prioritized is that there are 97 goals and 508 policies, and none of them are weighted. None of them are more important than the other. That makes every case one where we have to leave it to planners to start that conversation and then a community dialogue to debate what the priority should be in any given land use decision. That doesn't make decision-making very predictable because it can ebb and flow who shows up at meetings, how much access people have to these conversations. And though we've gotten better at making sure that access looks more equitable over time, it is something that we continue to strive to do better at the city. So we also have this more generalized land use map, as you saw, the bubble map, and the previous map had been too specific. So the reaction to that was to really generalize the map. We may want to go somewhere in between with this round, and I think that's a conversation we should have is, were we specific enough to get the outcomes we were looking for? Or do we need a small layer of specificity that doesn't feel like another layer of zoning? We also have had but it has provided a very robust basis for transportation modeling. We have been able to use the transportation and land use assumptions with the Arizona Department of Transportation and with Metro Plan and with our own decision making. Now, whether that's the outcome everybody wants, the plan when it went into the process of being revised by City Council had a very strong emphasis on bike, ped, and transit that was watered down through the process of City Council reviewing it before they sent it to voters because they thought the emphasis was too strong and that it wouldn't pass muster at the ballot box as it was. We're in a different place with a different conversation now, and we'll be taking another hard look at that. It also, of course, that 100-year water supply designation, which is really valuable to the community. It's like a bond rating for our water system. It says we're in good standing, we know where our water is, and we have plans and contingencies to keep providing water in our community. Not every city in Arizona has as robust and analytical a process for pulling that together as Flagstaff does. And we're certainly remarkable for a city our size. And we often get tapped even by people in other states of similarly sized cities as a model. So I'm just pulling up again that this is our future growth illustration. And as I said before, these activity centers, now that we've kind of talked through some of those things, take a hard look at these and think about what they say about our distribution and pattern as a city, which is really what they are talking about. They're talking about the distribution of land uses, the pattern, and the scale. And then the rest of the plan really talks about how the outcomes of those affect the community. So we sent out in your memo several key chapters that we thought, if I were a sustainability commissioner, where would I go to find material about the things I care about? And the thing about this regional plan is because all of these topics are so interwoven, it is not like you open the transportation chapter and find all the transportation policies. It's not true. They appear in multiple places all throughout different chapters. So what we also encourage everyone to look at and review is a thing that I often call the cheat sheet, and we call it formally the subject matter guide. And you can find this on the City of Flagstaff website, and we keep it up to date with every amendment to the regional plan. And you can go by topic and think it's about 15 pages long, and you can go find any topic and it tells you here's where the plan talks about that topic. This is a way of taking those scattered policies and making them easier to find for anyone who wants to look at them. So that's what's in the plan. How are we going to update it? We have a 4-phase public participation approach that was reviewed last year by the Board of Supervisors and City Council and that they endorsed. And it starts with this phase 1. Phase 1 is kind of quiet, but what we're doing today is part of phase 1. Our goal in phase 1 is to get curious and to gain some understanding. It is not to have answers. There are no final answers in phase 1. I say this often, I laugh because as soon as I ask people to write something down, they're like, but that might be an answer. No, there's no final answers in phase 1. We're just getting curious. We're feeling out the space in which we know we will need to make decisions. So the pressure in phase 1 is very low, but we're getting important information. So every commission is giving us feedback. We have an online visioning survey. We have, in cooperation with the Beautification and Public Art Commission, a set of art boxes that we will be able to take to events in which we would invite you, if you know of events you think we should be at throughout the summer. We can go set up a table at an event and sit down and do art with folks in a way that helps them start engaging mentally in the concepts behind the regional plan and gives us feedback about their values and how they visualize our sense of place as a community, which is really fantastic and was spearheaded by Sonia London Hall, who's a local artist and educator. We also have had this 22-part series that we called Regional Snapshots, and the sustainability staff has contributed to quite a few of them. Those now, the last Regional Snapshot webinar is happening on Monday, and the topic is equity. That's our final one before we sign off for now. We may revive this series if there's things we need to talk about in this kind of information sharing manner further on in the process. And they all live on the City of Flagstaff's YouTube page as a nice playlist. So if you have, they're about a half hour each, 15 minutes if you just watch the presentation. So if you're ever really bored and thinking you want to look at something that's kind of podcast-like but really informative, I hope you work your way down the list and starts from some really basic stuff like land ownership and how does that work and what does it look like in our region, to more complicated topics like climate change and energy. And fire, flooding, and emergency management was another really complex topic. More complex topics got 2 webinars to kind of get through a variety of material. So having be at this stage where we have done a lot of that, we're visiting with commissions, we're starting to be out in the community and generate some excitement and art that contributes to our process. The next phase is the one I think people really imagine when we talk about this last regional plan process, which is getting excited about what is possible and what is our vision. That includes understanding values, trade-offs, and at the center of that needs to be a collaborative process that helps us as a community have a representative process that digests all of that and sets the goals and the bars going forward. Phase 2 is another phase where we are kind of writing the plan, but we're not really writing the plan. We're going to be still gathering, still refining. There'll be some rough drafts and little pieces, but really we'll move into a 3rd phase called phase 3, in which we will actually write a plan. We will be creating draft chapters, and that is the only phase at which we will have an advisory committee. Now, the last regional plan update had an advisory committee from start to finish, and I'll be very honest, having a 22-person committee that needed 13 people to get a quorum was an impossible drag on an already complicated process and a major reason that delayed its adoption. So we aren't going that route again. I have lots of people saying, when do I get to be on a committee? And the answer is not yet. We'll get there. This also includes a lot of reviews by attorneys and experts, and the community gets a public review period. So you not only have to create it, but lots of people have to have a chance to really go through it and mark it up and say, yes, no, maybe, change this. And then there is also a pretty lengthy adoption process because it has to go both through the city and the county. That would happen in phase 4. There's a lot of ingredients to this plan, as you can imagine, and we are just in the phase of kind of finding what they are and putting them maybe in a pile. And then later on, we are through phase 2, we will start laying them out and figuring out how it will all knit together. And that includes over 180 data metrics, which we have been organizing for more than a year and are a very significant part of our regional snapshot series. So behind all of that is an enormous amount of GIS and data analysis work that staff has already started doing so that the data can pull things together. I have a colleague in Canada who says no stories without data and no data without stories. And that is one of our mantras when it comes to managing something that is this complex. And then, of course, there are emerging issues that aren't so emerging in some cases, but they have been around, but they are not very present in our current plan. And we really need to have conversations about how strongly they should be emphasized and what should be included on them as we move forward with the plan update. And so this is usually where I would pause and we get going into the SWOT analysis, but we're not going to do that today because the commission's not provided enough brainstorming into that process yet. So I'll pause and I'll answer any questions you have. And also, if you're having any technical issues with the digital whiteboard, if you didn't try yet, my contact information is right here, and you should feel free to call or email me if you are having access issues, and I can give you a call back and we will figure it out. I'll hand that back to you, Chair McCain.
Great, thanks so much, Sarah. So are there any questions, commissioners, for Sarah? All right, well, thank you, Sarah, and thank you for the reminder for us to get this done now if we haven't already done it, to do that SWOT analysis. So Sarah can come back and lead us through that other process.
Great, and so we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Okay. So next is our item C, Climate Ambassador Training Part 3 with Jenna. Are you with us, Jenna?
I am here. Give me just a second and I will get the PowerPoint up. It's great to be back. I hope you all are doing well. Hey, Marissa, could you let me know if that is showing up okay?
We can see it. Thank you.
Awesome. So again, good evening. This will be our third and final segment of the Climate Ambassador training. And tonight we are gonna take a deep dive into communication and action. As a reminder, I absolutely welcome and encourage any questions. Try to make this interactive. Please just interrupt me. I can kind of see you guys in the chat box a little bit, but either just interrupt, or Marissa, if you see something, if you could help me by interrupting me as well, I would appreciate that. I definitely want to talk through the issues that are most meaningful to you guys during this. So jump in if you want to really dive into something a little deeper and tell me to slow down or repeat something as well. So let's jump in. So can I have a volunteer to read this quote for me? Just please unmute yourself and go for it.
The best advice for anyone who wants to engage with others on climate action is to start in our own communities. Begin with people who share your values and open your heart. Communicate why you care so passionately about this issue and why you think they might too, because of the same values.
Thank you, appreciate that. So I imagine maybe some folks have heard of Katharine Hayhoe. She's a climate scientist, but really she has kind of found her passion in promoting positive climate change conversations and really working to normalize this topic. The quote I really like of hers is, "A thermometer is not liberal or conservative," and I just really like that short and very direct quote. When we talk about climate change, I know it's become a polarized issue, and I so appreciate her work to kind of try to break that down, that divisiveness, and really focus the conversation on how people are impacted and not just the scientific evidence. So this next slide is something a little different. So movements really need a broad coalition of allies, but allies that are uniquely positioned to connect with others like themselves and have the necessary conversations. This is seen in social psychology, cognitive science, all those good sciences there. And so I don't know if people are familiar with Dr. David Camp, but he works on issues of race, and he has the race method, he calls it, which is reflect, ask, connect, and expand, which is a great way to talk to people about many issues, not just race. And his thesis is that really often the messenger can be more important than the message, and that, you know, making that connection first. He talks about how white allies are uniquely positioned to connect with white racism skeptics and expand their views, and same with male allies and sexism. So he really breaks down these issues with being the right messenger and connecting with people who are similar to you. So you can kind of think about who you might be the right messenger for when it comes to climate change. And, you know, the easiest one is like people in your family. You're the best person to talk to them about climate change. You have built a relationship with them, hopefully a good one if you're going to talk to them about climate change. But, you know, are you an athlete? You can connect with other athletes. So really keep in mind who you might be able to connect with. All right, so why are we here today? Many reasons, and you guys are kind of a special group, but really think about the word ambassador. A huge part of kind of this whole training we do is to get you thinking about common values and connecting with people. I personally love doing this training and got involved in this work for so many reasons, you know, a few of them on there, but really community and awareness and trying to inspire action and share information. So again, you can kind of think about, you know, maybe your top 2 or 3 reasons why you got involved either on the commission, or if this work has been a longer passion than that, and try to really think about those issues as we kind of go through everything tonight. All right. So why take climate action? Are there opportunities that you see in climate action? Everyone can really work hard to increase awareness about climate change and understanding. And even a step past that would be working to influence action. So kind of to start, I think we have a decent understanding of this, especially you guys, but the easiest way, or the easiest reason why, is that climate action has co-benefits, and so many, like I still learn new co-benefits all the time. Just said I got kicked out of the meeting and back in. Marissa, can you confirm that you can still hear me?
Still hear you. I also got kicked out, and I apologize for connectivity issues.
No, it was pretty quick. I was like, wow, how did I not know I got kicked out? So thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, there's plenty of positive benefits related to both the reduction of greenhouse gases, the mitigation side, but also the adaptation side and building resilience. Plenty of benefits on many different parts of climate action. We can think about cleaner air, job creation, overall public health benefits, thinking about like active travel has public health benefits, biodiversity improvements, and then personal benefits to you as individuals. So saving money, thinking about your personal health when you make changes to your lifestyle, and becoming more resilient to climate change impacts. So example, if you ride your bike, you are, instead of driving your car, you are reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but you're also changing your lifestyle. And this can help with so many chronic illnesses and disease, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and plenty of others. So that's one way to think about the reasons that you can talk to people for taking climate action. This slide is really busy, and I doubt you can see it very well, but I just love this graph, and it really kind of circles everything around, and it has these little emblems at the bottom for the health benefits, and just kind of seeing this full circle of co-benefits. Again, lower emissions, less pollutants in our air. This will not only help climate change, but again, our health. And there's also economic benefits to climate action. There are, of course, hurdles as well, but studies are increasingly showing that climate policies can lead to cost savings over time. It can cost a lot of money as well, but over time, they usually will pay for itself in the long run, especially if you bring in a bunch of other things like health cost and so many other things that cost us money in the long run. Employment as well from the economic side, access to energy for people and clean energy in remote areas with centralized power grids. So all sorts of things that I won't spend too much time in, but there's a lot of studies that show hundreds of different benefits. And, there's this really cool thing where cities, do things and then report a positive benefit afterwards, as well as co-benefits. So, all right, we will jump into who can and should take climate action. So I can't see you guys and I want to hear from you. So to start throwing ideas out there, obviously we've kind of talked about the individual, but thinking on a broader scale, who can take climate action?
I guess the short answer is everyone. But I think if we really want change, there needs to be really drastic systems change. And that is really hard to do. That means lots of people wanting change, probably along with the breakdown in the systems that are working. So yeah, I mean, we need a lot of people, I guess, is the answer. And I just have a lot of concerns, and I know this is contrary probably to the frame that we're working at, but my concern is that if we are so focused on individual action, then I'm afraid that deters us from the systems change that we need. And that's just a tension that I think goes with climate action that I just wanted to share. And yeah, because I guess there's so much push for individual action and we need systems change. So that's I guess a grief of mine that I have.
Very valid. Thank you, Chair McCain. Does anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll definitely echo that. I feel like there's a lot of onus and responsibility placed on individual action and some amount of shame too placed on individual action that it's your responsibility to fix this kind of mindset, regardless of how much, disposable income you have to put toward this time, if you're able-bodied, all this other stuff. And so, yeah, really kind of flipping the focus onto corporations and other large-scale businesses and industries that are actually the problem, that are sort of diverting focus to individuals, which is not the way it should be.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
And I'll just add with that, I mean, I think the who is the commission here. And for me, I mean, I've also emailed staff about this, but we're a commission. And I know this is an ambassador program that is, I think, mostly focused toward individuals, but we have some systemic power. So I think as we talk and think about action, I really want us to think about what we can do as a commission, in addition to the things we can do as individuals. What can we do as a commission, given our standing, given our place? So I really invite all of us to think of that as we move from getting this training into considering what we might do.
Absolutely. Anyone else? All right. Thank you to everyone who shared. And yeah, great answers. We have a very short list on here, but it isn't as focused on the individual on this list. And, commission should absolutely be on this list. And thinking about if you're part of any certain groups besides the commission, you guys are uniquely poised and kind of all on board already, maybe, if we can say that, a generalization, but thinking of other groups that you might be able to influence as well. So on the next couple slides, we'll go into kind of 3 kind of broad types of action. And the first one you will see is individual, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. You guys are very familiar, but yeah, it's taken by an individual. There's a long list of things that you can do as an individual. But next we have collective action. So taken as a group, acting on a collective decision. And, there's so many different things you can do as a group, and, some really cool things as a community or a neighborhood, especially when it comes to resilience. And I think it really helps to start somewhere where it's easy to approach people, thinking about the wildfires that are happening right now. Do you know if everyone on your street is able-bodied, has a way to escape if there was an evacuation? Do you know which people might need help? So, that's something you can just start in your neighborhood, go knock on your neighbor's door and ask them, or maybe start, a list of contact information. So a lot of ways to start small, and that kind of opens the conversation to begin talking about climate change as well. All the way up to advocacy and starting a letter writing campaign, encouraging people to attend public meetings and engaging in stewardship activities. And even further, civic engagement, you guys are probably more familiar than most as well in some of the processes, but we talk a lot at the local level, but sometimes we need to go even bigger. And even if we have policies that we think are doing well locally, we might need to get in touch with our state representatives as well. Also the Arizona Corporation Commission and federal level as well, but I think state is a good place to start, especially where we are. And again, you can do this as an individual, or to make it more powerful, you can try to get a group of people to do it, whether it's friends or family, and really help people get involved and understand the process that's going on in our governments. And so this is just a quick slide to kind of reiterate that all the levers need to be used. As you guys pointed out, you know, individual is really small in the middle. That can't be the only way. It's not going to work if that is the way we think we're going to solve climate change. So it is one piece of the puzzle. And, you know, I think it's a good way when people start feeling like some ownership with individual action, even though I agree it's not going to do a lot, but I think it gets them engaged at least, and they start wanting to learn more. So I think individual actions are great to get people to start thinking about climate change on a deeper level. So what should guide climate action? And this is, again, can be a personal thing. So does anyone have any thoughts? What are you motivated by? Is there a certain thing that motivates you?
I mean, reducing human suffering is what motivates me. I mean, what we're looking at is you know, we're already experiencing suffering all around the globe, aside from the global north, since we've been insulated from it. And as time goes on, we're not going to be able to be insulated by it. So for me, it's just pretty simple. It's that there's going to be a lot of suffering unless we get change. I think that's a big one for me. And also, I mean, you know, I want a world that's based on well-being, and that's, I guess, the for me, kind of the ultimate co-benefit of working on systems change, that we can create systems that actually work for people rather than systems that work for accumulating wealth for the few. So I guess those are a couple that are big for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think similarly, reducing inequality across a lot of different ways, but also thinking of, you know, access to basic human rights, or things that I think are basic human rights, like, you know, clean air and fresh water, and green space, and you know, the ability to enjoy our planet in ways that it's often kept from large groups of people.
Anyone else we haven't heard from, or anyone else want to jump in? All right. So yeah, there's a handful on here. And I think, you know, we might all feel little pieces of these things, but a lot of times there is one thing that really pulls at people and gets them to get involved and take action. So a lot of times getting to know someone and finding out what that is before you decide your tactic you're going to use can be really helpful. So having those conversations first. So would anyone like to share an experience of a conversation you've had about climate change? And it doesn't have to be the whole conversation, but, you know, usually I'm like, who has had a conversation about climate change that didn't go well? And I'm the first to raise my hand. And I imagine if you've been talking about it for a while, you've probably had one of those experiences, but it could also be one that went really well and surprised you. I've had plenty of those too, where I'm like, oh, I'm going to say climate change and it's not going to go well, but it did. So I don't know if anyone wants to jump in or not. I wish I could see you guys.
Well, I could share one, and for me, I think again, I guess the framing, there's a lot of framings, but for me, it's really about systems change, not climate change. I think that has a lot more resonance and well-being, not necessarily co-benefits. I think the framing is so important. Discussion I had, I mean, I've been having tons of discussions with a friend of mine that have been really good. But one that was kind of unique that I'll share is a response to a letter to the editor that I wrote, I think early last month, maybe. And a gentleman emailed me and said, just out of the blue, he said, "Oh, you should read, there's a book called Unsettled about by Stephen Koonin, a somewhat conservative writer." He said, "Oh, you should read this book. You should read this book." And actually, I already had read it and not resonated with much of the conclusions that the author put forward. Basically, was cherry picking the data and making an argument that that the data wasn't correct around climate change. So it sparked an email conversation, which was unique for me in general, and in particular on climate change. And I actually recommended a book to, well, I'll turn on my video. I recommended a book to him that I'd recommend to all of you that I actually have copies of. It's called Less is More by Jason Hickel. I do have a couple copies if any of you want to read it. And it really talks about degrowth as a strategy, really seeing that economic growth is fundamental to the continuance of emissions and the failure that renewables will have to reduce emissions. So I actually recommended this book to him and actually dropped one off at the country club for him. And it was interesting. We had this kind of dialogue, and it came to the point where he replied with pages from his book. He was writing a book of some sort, and it just came very closely to a place where he wanted debate, and I'm not interested in debate. So I invited him. I said, "Hey, why don't we get together and see if we can find common ground? I think that might be fun." That was the last I heard from him. So that was kind of an interesting novel one. And commissioners and Jenna, anyone, if you want a copy of this book, just email me and I can send you one. I have like 3 or 4.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else want to share either a conversation or what worked in a conversation or what didn't work in a conversation, or something you've struggled with during conversations?
Well, I can share again on the other side of what worked. I think for me, sharing an assessment that people can resonate with. I think every cure starts with a diagnosis. So if you have a diagnosis that is shared with someone, then you have somewhere to go with it. So being able to hear where someone's coming from on it and relate where you are, and if there's resonance, then you have a place to go. I think I've also had a lot of conversations where, again, people don't want to name capitalism, don't want to name certain structural things as part of the problem for various reasons. And then it's hard to keep the conversation going when people have a very different diagnosis, because they're going to have a different cure. And we can all say, yeah, we can do everything and everything helps. But for me, if the diagnosis says one thing and it's not showing a mechanism for change, then the cure is going to fall short no matter how many people do it. So I guess for me, that diagnosis and cure analogy fits really well. And when you can find people that share your analysis, then you can work together to work on that cure, whatever it is.
Yes, absolutely. It's getting to that kind of common ground can be the difficult, but yeah, I think, that's the goal. Once you're there, you're in that space. So thank you so much for sharing. All right. So I'm not sure if you guys have kind of heard of these 6 Americas, but it's something we highlight on here. One of the first rules of effective communication is know your audience. And so this is and kind of a audience tool that was designed to help people better understand their own climate views, but also other people's climate views. And the research identified 6 unique audiences within the American public that each responds to the issue in their very own distinct way. And so we can kind of start off the first, alarmed. They're fully convinced that of the reality of climate change, the seriousness of it. They know it's human caused. They know it's urgent. They support climate policies. They're taking individual action, consumer action, political action. The only thing that is still true about the alarmed is most of them aren't really sure exactly how the problem's going to be solved. So that is alarmed. Next, we have concerned. So they think global warming is human caused, it's happening, it's a serious threat. They do support climate policies. However, they still kind of think that the impacts of climate change are far off, or at least down the road, that they are maybe not happening right now. So it's not maybe their #1 priority issue. The next 3 represent kind of different stages of understanding and acceptance, and none of them are actively involved. So alarmed and concerned are actively involved. The cautious haven't yet made up their minds. Is it happening? Is it human caused? How serious it is? So they're kind of just, they're not really sure yet. And then the disengaged, they don't know a lot about climate change. They don't hear about it often on the media or wherever they're getting their information. And next we have the doubtful. So they don't think climate change is happening, or they believe it's a natural cycle, and they just don't really think about it much. It's not a serious issue for them at all. And then the final America is dismissive. They're sure climate change is not happening. They're actively involved as opponents of any efforts to reduce emissions. They might engage in conspiracy theories or say that climate change is a hoax. So think about when you're having conversations, kind of where this person might land in these 6 Americas. And so this first survey is back in 2008, and you can see alarmed is somewhat small, concerned is pretty big, and dismissive's pretty small, which is good. I know sometimes I feel like it's maybe bigger than that, but we jump ahead 10 years, and you can see by 2018, more than half of Americans are alarmed or concerned. But also the issue is becoming a little more polarized at this time. People distrust is out there, and whether or not humans are responsible is becoming a political issue despite science. And I did pull up the 2020, and unfortunately, alarm dropped a little bit, and so did concerned, but cautious went up. So kind of jumps around a little bit depending on kind of the atmosphere we're in. So, you think about if more than half of us are in this kind of majority, but we're not really good at talking to the people on the other end of the spectrum. Some of these people might even be our family members, and we're still not good at talking to them. So really thinking about, dinner table and family time. But the good news is you're exactly the right person if you're related to any of these people. So we all need to start getting better at talking to our family members, people that we already have some sort of connection with, even if they're not family. Maybe they're a neighbor that we've lived next to for a long time, or someone that we've worked with for a long time. Being that trusted messenger, people are more likely to believe you if you're not a complete stranger to them, obviously. So that's one of the biggest powers you have as an individual. And so I think when we talk about individual action, it's not recycling that's going to solve climate change, but I do think that an individual action of talking to other people is such an important action, and it's something that we all have to do. It's, I think, the most important individual action we can take until this graph totally changes. And this is kind of just a 5-year trend, but I won't spend too much time here, but you can see things are changing, but we're still have kind of over half of the graph there. And so now we kind of talk about the best ways to communicate. And, I think that first one is meet people where they are. And that involves being open, listening to people, especially listen first. You can't go into these conversations just talking at people. Be open to listening and hearing their point of view first before you talk at them. They feel, people are intimidated at times and feel like they're never heard, and that's when tensions can rise. So I think listening is one of the most important things we can do when we're having conversations. And sometimes we don't even have to respond depending on where they're at. We can listen for a while, and if it's someone we're going to see again, we can go home and think about, how can we connect with this person instead of having an argument with them, if that's where you think the next step is going to go. Getting to learn, why do they believe what they believe? Maybe learn about where they're getting their information, and, consider how you can build trust even further by just listening and learning why they feel the way they do. Again, know your audience, trying to think about maybe where they are on the spectrum of the 6 Americas, and just have a conversation with them. You don't have to change their mind that day. The goal doesn't always have to be convincing them of the opposite of what they believe in. Know experts in your community, especially if you think they might be a good messenger, or invite this person to talk to someone else if you're not getting through to them. And don't lose hope. I know that can be really difficult at times. Trust me, I know. But these are kind of the most important things to think about when you're having a conversation with someone. And this is kind of new. I just added this in, but these are actually guidelines for making progress with someone who doubts that racism is real, and not to compare the two at all, but I think these are really good guidelines for talking about any issues that can be hard to talk about. And I really like, don't expect immediate conversions. And I think sometimes that's, we go into the conversation like that is, of course, our goal, but to not expect it is a good way to start practicing these conversations. And I think arguing is not very successful, at least maybe not for me. So don't argue, and be curious about their perspective. But I think an important part of that is you have to be genuinely curious. If you're faking it just to achieve your end goal, it's not going to work. So truly want to learn who they are, want to learn about their opinions, and try not to come at it with this, judgment aspect. Just listen and learn, and you'll get better at being able to figure out what might make that person change their mind, even if you're just changing it this much at the time. And a few more, connect with them by relating. Maybe you're both parents, maybe you both have the same hobbies, maybe you go to the same church, you went to NAU, just find a way to really connect and align yourself with them to really build that trust. And, keep working up. I like at the end, it says, bring some facts, but only at the right time. So, if it's your first conversation or really jumping in, I don't think facts are always the best way to change someone's mind who is, already kind of disengaged or dismissive of climate change. They've probably heard the facts before, but they didn't resonate with them. So I'll pause there for a second. Does anyone have questions or anything they want to jump in with at this point?
Well, I'll just add, I think it's neat to use racism as a model, and it also it points to the challenge of making climate change personal and real. I guess it points to a real contrast there, since for many people, obviously people of color, that it's very real what racism does personally. And I think finding the connections to climate change and how it personally impacts is important, and just kind of seeing the challenge in that of, I guess the fires, we can use the fires here as one clear thing. But yeah, just intrigued, because I think racism tends to be, you see someone getting shot by a police officer who's brown, and they didn't do anything, and you're kind of, okay, that's there. We have to. It's harder to say we see someone brown in the global south who's drowning because of climate change. It's kind of more distant. So just reflecting on the challenge of doing that, and thinking of racism as a model that we want to emulate.
Please jump in, anyone.
Go ahead, Commissioner White.
Oh, thanks. I just wanted your, I don't know, feedback or suggestions. So a lot for, I think, and I don't know how to, there's certain things that I don't know how to deal with talking about climate communication that, well, the major one, I guess, is that I get the sense with a lot of people that climate change denial isn't just like an opinion, but for a lot of people, it's part of their core identity. I mean, it's not core to their identity, but like, they associate they associate climate denial, or they associate fossil fuels with things like masculinity or patriotism or other things like that, or with their political affiliation, which is core to their identity, which makes it challenging, because it means that you're not going to change. You're not even going to begin to change their mind, maybe, unless you change how they think of who they are, which is a much bigger challenge than just changing somebody's mind about something about about the facts, basically. And it's along similar lines. A lot of people have their livings tied up with directly or indirectly with industries that contribute to climate change. And as the saying goes, you're never you'll never get somebody to understand something if their livelihood depends on them not understanding it. So that's part of the reason that why we need systems change, because we need to be able to present people with viable ways of making a living without contributing to climate change. But still, I kind of wonder what your take on either of those issues is.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, for me, I think it's if depending on what kind of relationship I have, if this is a stranger, there's a good chance I'm not going to make it very far on changing their view. But I like to kind of follow that, kind of learning more about why they think that. And you're right, maybe it's their livelihood, but maybe learning, is there anything that would get you to change your mind? Or, you know, have you ever maybe considered this? So I think going into those conversations, knowing that there's a good chance you might not change their mind, but for me, it's almost like a learning activity and hearing from them and asking them questions, because you're right. Sometimes it's so ingrained in their identity that they've probably never even thought about it. That's just part of their identity. So they don't dive really deep into the reasons. So for those kind of conversations, I try to listen and ask questions, but not in a way that's going to offend or upset them. But maybe this is someone that you have a close relationship with. And for those people, you know, over time, I keep asking, or maybe they say, you know, like, my family's from like the Pacific Northwest and they love like fishing. So I find something like fishing that I know this person loves. And I make the entire conversation about that, you know. Have you seen, you know, what's happening to the salmon up here? You know, why are they not doing as well? And thinking about, and they'll be like, well, the water's warmer, the ocean is not doing well, and bringing that back to climate change. So if it's one of these, I find what they're passionate about, what they love, and try to think about if anything, if climate change is going to impact that at all. And as we know, climate change is going to impact almost everything. So thinking about that, and if it is something where their livelihood depends on it, you might not get them to become a climate activist, but you might get them to think about how climate change is impacting other people or impacting you personally, especially if this person cares about you. You can tell your personal story of why you got involved or why you care so much. So I think if you just really going in, not making this about changing their mind or about changing it today, you can start to have really meaningful conversations about it and maybe make them think a little differently, even if they don't admit it at that time. I know that wasn't like the perfect answer to your question, but I hope that helps a little bit.
Oh yeah, so it's good stuff to think about. Thank you very much.
Yeah, anybody else?
Hi, this is Elizabeth Richardson. I'm a guest tonight. Is it appropriate for me to jump in?
Yes, I think it's okay. Sure, we actually have time. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having this meeting. I work at the health department with Coconino County, and I have really been enjoying this conversation very much. One of the things that I noticed during COVID is what you're talking about right now, and that people were struggling so much with grief that they were largely in denial. And I think it's the very same thing that we're working with climate change right now. I think it's the same thing with racism, and I think it's the same thing with any major changes that we're asking our communities and society to go through. And we're really asking people to do a complete cultural flip at this time and to reevaluate what we give status to, what we think is important in our communities, what we value. And I think that's incredibly hard for people. And so this conversation that we're having right now is so important because we're talking about how do we do that with people? How can we get people in the right headspace to even get on board and accept what's happening? And that's really the biggest part, because once people can accept it, I think we can move forward. But we're talking about definitely the stages of change and the stages of grief. And I think that's been hard for all of us to go through and get to where we're at today. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you all so much for this, and thank you for letting me talk. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Elizabeth, so much for sharing. And you're right, you know, all of these polarizing issues we struggle with as community, as a society, and you know, the grief is real for sure. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I know we're getting close to time, so I'm gonna wrap it up in kind of 2 slides. The end was a lot of resources that I'll be sure still get to you even if we don't talk about them. So these last 2 slides are really just what is your role? And I know we've kind of gone back and forth between, is this your role as an individual or is this your role as a commission? So, you know, discussions, like we're just saying, having these hard conversations with especially people who you're the right messenger for, sharing your knowledge, but also sharing your personal story as well, and supporting local action and really encouraging engagement. You guys are all clearly engaged community members already, but we need to grow the amount of people who are engaged in our community to where this becomes really feeling like an issue that we're working on as an entire community instead of, you know, a commission or a small department or one neighborhood. So those are really important things. And we'll end it with this slide, but this is to make sure to think about that if you're not confident yet, you know, make sure you practice having these conversations. Don't start on someone who is disengaged or dismissive. Practice having conversations with your friends who maybe already think the same way. But for me, that was really helpful just to have conversations with people who feel the same way, but talk about how we can, you know, talk to others about this. And just a long list of where and when and how you can share this information. So I will end it there and see if we have any questions before I think I'm up next on the agenda too for the staff summary update. So please, comments, questions, or anything.
Well, I have a question for you, Jenna, especially given your experience doing organizing kind of in a nonprofit setting and kind of sort of, I guess, doing organizing with the city. Just for me, it seems like the field of community organizing around climate change or systems change is an underdeveloped one. And though it's the most necessary one we might have. So I'm just curious, given your experience and your background, what insights do you have on what's been successful for you in trying to get people organized?
Great question. Yes, I think it is definitely a field that is very difficult, and that's why you don't see hundreds of people organizing all the time. There's a lot of burnout, and what was successful for me was my relationships. I came here new and I started organizing, and I found just a handful of people that felt the same way and were on board. So having either one person or 5 people that you can have these conversations with, that you can ask to go out with you, so you're not going out into the community alone, but say, hey, can we go knock on doors in our neighborhood together and maybe start seeing how we can strengthen our little community right here in this neighborhood. So for me, it was starting small, and, you know, I think you want to go in and you want to get everybody, but that's not going to happen really easily. So starting small and building was what really kept me going, was having just this small group of people and seeing it get bigger and bigger over time. And even if the number only got from 2 to 100, I mean, that's a big deal, and asking those people to keep having these conversations in the community.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? All right, well, let's close item C, and then we'll go to E. Jenna, a staff update and introduction. Go ahead.
Perfect. Hope you're not getting tired of me yet. Let me screen share again. I'm switching the PowerPoints. Hey, Marissa, is that up and looking okay?
Yep, it is.
All right, so I know this is like a 5-minute agenda item and I have 18 slides, so I'm gonna go kind of fast, but stop me if you would like.
Actually, Jenna, we're a little ahead of schedule, so if you even want to take 10 minutes, that would work.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're gonna start with Earth Day, which was a blast. Last Saturday, we had over 50 different community organizations all came together at Bushmaster Park. The weather held out. It was like snowing and hailing on Friday, so we were very fortunate. Every table had different activities. It was a blast. We were so thankful to all of our partners who made it amazing. I think that's why Earth Day is great, because it's not just us there, it's so many different community members. We had a litter cleanup that 80 volunteers participated in, which is so great. We had 3 different workshops and many people attended those as well. So it was a great Earth Day. Commissioner Steiger did an amazing job at being our Albert handler, as we call it. So that was super fun. I don't know if you can see this like picture doing the crosscut saw, but amazing. Threaded Together was there. I got to hang out next to them and like learned a little bit about sewing, which I need. So they kind of helped with Marissa do talk about the neighborhood sustainability grants with the community, which is one of our favorite things to talk about because it's such a neat program, and they got to pass out some materials as well. All right, upcoming events. This Saturday, we have drop-off day from 10 a.m. to 2 at the Flagstaff Police Department. And then, I can't believe it's almost May, but it is. So we're starting one a day in May. And the goal is to pick up at least one piece of litter every single day in May. And you can use the Literati app, which is so fun to say. There's a code on there, and I talked to Marissa to make sure you guys have access to this PowerPoint, so you don't need to write down that code. It's also on our website. And community gardens are starting to happen, and so we have some volunteer days coming up, as well as a really important class. When I moved here, I could not garden here, so an intro to high altitude gardening on Saturday, May 14th at the Southside Community Garden. All right, staff update. So currently, right now, the climate team is working with NAU Center for Service and Volunteerism to hire 3 AmeriCorps Vistas for the 2022-23 term. So it's a full year term, working about 35 hours a week. Applications are open for all 3 of them. One is a youth climate leadership, working in partnership with FUSD and working on climate action in schools. The other one is a clean jobs workforce development. And so that's kind of thinking about trades and jobs when it comes to clean energy. And the last one is equitable recovery and resilience. I know these names are so crazy, but they're all amazing. And that one will really try to work actually in the community and in our neighborhoods, thinking about making them more resilient. The priority applications close May 1st, but they're on a rolling process. So if you know anybody, please spread the word. We're really excited to add 3 people onto the climate team. All right, so these are some kind of current activities. Again, working with our partners at Flagstaff Unified School District, FUSD, to develop a greenhouse gas accounting project so that FUSD can track, understand, evaluate their emissions, and hopefully set a goal to reduce those emissions. But we have found together an amazing summer intern who's part of our sustainability leaders course, who's going to work with all 3 agencies on this project. So that's really exciting. And if you didn't get a chance to attend, we have hosted some workshops on cold climate heat pumps with the Electric League of Arizona. And we had more than 170 people register. So you can really see that there's a need for this in our community. And the recording is online through the end of June. So watch it if you are interested. There's some great information, and it's coming from experts who know all about these things. And we also had 15 contractors do a technical workshop as well. That is like a little above my league, but super cool that that many contractors are interested in our community. Meet the Youth Climate Advisory Group, who'll be showing up here in about an hour. They've been meeting for a month and a half now, but they had their own table at Earth Day. They're all amazing. They will be coming to a commission meeting at some point in the next year. So hopefully you'll get a chance to meet them all. There's only a handful in this picture, but there's 10 of them, and they're really working on how they're going to introduce themselves to the community and how they're going to really get involved and take action as a group. So I love them. They're amazing. Sorry, my computer froze up for a sec, but the co-op's coming back again, hopefully in mid-May. This is a solar co-op, so keep an eye from that. Last year we had over 200 people sign up, so we're hoping to get a large participation in that again. We have partnered up with CUPE, the Community University Public Inquiry Project, as part of the Sustainability Communities Program at NAU this spring. And they did some really neat work focusing on sustainable transportation and engaging their peers at NAU about mountain lion and other ways to leave their car wherever, and talking about how they're going to do that again before the next class shows up at NAU. So awesome stuff there. We're hosting a workshop next week to talk about transforming transportation with Metro Plan. This will include staff from the city, the county, ADOT, Metro Plan, NAU, a lot of key players. So this is really important to us, and it's part of the grant, and really trying to talk about the big shift in our community. All right, applications are currently open for our Equity Climate Advisory Group. I think I'm gonna have them open through May, but I know I've talked to you guys about the advisory groups before, but again, you can find it on our website, or please invite someone you might know who might be a good candidate to apply. Nicole's on here. I think she doesn't like this picture. I was hoping she didn't see it, but I made it really small. So we just had the 3rd annual Innovate Waste and Carbon Neutrality Challenge event on last Friday. Teamed up with Moonshot, and they pitched these amazing things. We had a couple judges on the panel, not me, but you can see first place, Restoration Soils, second place, Crosswalk Labs, and honorable mention, Windswept Acres. So a really neat program that we're fortunate happens in our community.
Jenna, could you say a little bit more about what their projects were? If you know, if you don't, that's fine.
I could, but
No worries.
Friday, and I've been catching my breath since then, but I know I shared an article to our social media account, and so I'm not sure if it gave a good in-depth thing, but yeah, hopefully there'll be more articles coming out.
Okay.
Commissioners, this is Nicole Antonopoulos. I'm happy to jump in if you would like to hear just a bit more on the projects.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to provide some resources that can go out in an email. So Windswept Farms focuses on trying to reduce food waste, and they did get the honorable mention and $1,000 scholarship. And their goal is they are looking for assistance to actually purchase a mobile unit that will allow them to do pickling and preserving of foods before they kind of essentially are thrown out. And they have a fantastic project mission and did a wonderful job at the pitch event. The next category was the second place, and that was for software. Vulcan Labs focuses on real-time greenhouse gas emissions inventorying. And Kevin Gurney, Dr. Kevin Gurney, is actually based at Northern Arizona University, so a local partnership with the university, and really excited to see the opportunities for this, as we recognize it as a very useful tool for greenhouse gas accounting. And then Restoration Soils was first place, and this is a collaboration to keep materials out of the landfill, but essentially a large-scale composting facility that will be able to take not just products from, let's say, a brewery, their mash, but and food scraps, but they will be able to take forest products, and that's where they're really going to focus their attention at the beginning, to try to recirculate large-scale mulch needs in the community. So those are very high level recaps of the projects.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. An amazing recap. All right, trying to get through a few more before I go way too over on time. So food systems, we have printed out 32 plots. I won't even read you the.
I don't think we can see your PowerPoint, Jenna. At least I can't.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
I see a
can
little.
it.
You can see it?
Yeah, and I wonder, would you be able to stop sharing and then reshare?
I can see it too.
Oh, okay.
Huh, I just see, actually, I see a icon for it in the bottom of my screen, which is weird.
Interesting. And you're in the window for the Teams call?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, maybe we could try to reload it, and if it doesn't come up, then if it's just me, no big deal. If you're gonna
Okay.
send it to
Yeah, Jen, if you don't mind just Xing out and then resharing just real quick.
Mhm.
All right, I see it now.
Perfect.
Yay.
Thank you, Jenna.
No problem. So this is just highlighting our community gardens and how many, there's a total of about 100 gardeners participating with us this season. So that is amazing. And our partners at Terra Birds are gardening in several plots at each of the gardens and hosting volunteer sessions on Thursdays. So that is great news. And it looks like our office is hosting a beginning of the season potluck for all gardeners on Friday, May 13th. So again, with food systems, 3 backyard animal keeping permits have been approved in the month of April for residents who are going to start raising chickens at home. And we had, this picture is Barbara. We had a chicken join us at Earth Day, and she's an amazing ambassador for the program. And again, on food systems, our office is in partnership with Flagstaff Food Link. We hosted a community seed swap at the Bonito Garden back in April, and there was over 50 people in attendance and a bunch of organizations there. And everyone got to take home seeds to kind of start working on their gardens this year. All right, materials management. We are doing sustainability leaders right now. It's every Wednesday night. It used to be an 8-week course. We bumped it up to 9 weeks, still trying to bring in more aspects of climate and the carbon neutrality plan. So we've added housing this year, as well as some other things. So it's going good. They're a great group. And so this is about the Trash Less, Save More program. and the food scraps drop-off program. And this is kind of small, sorry, but okay, I know about these. So we're working on getting QR code stickers on all of the recycling bins to really help people be able to scan that QR code and go right to the website, which will break down further which items are recyclable or not. Here in Flagstaff, we have 5,000 stickers, so that's wonderful, and starting to get them on recycling receptacles. So hopefully that will help with our contamination rates in the community.
We're getting pretty short on time now, Jenna, so
Okay.
maybe just a couple more minutes if you can.
Yes, I think this is my last slide. Phew. This is the residential food scraps drop-off program has been funded for the next fiscal year and has moved out of the pilot stage. So good news, and we're hoping to get more drop-off locations for that. And I will wrap it up there. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jenna. And now Jenny, item E, update on Lone Tree intersection.
Thanks so much, Jenna. Hi, folks. Jenny Neiman, Climate Program Manager. Thanks for the good discussion today. So this was in your agenda packet, and we asked folks to ideally kind of review the information beforehand. So I don't have a presentation in or anything, but what we wanted to do was just, bring up the conversation about Lone Tree. Engineering and capital improvement staff members provided about a one-page update to the council or to the commission at the commission's request, to just let them know where they are, what options they're considering, etc. That team is working through a number of different considerations, and they are basically evaluating the intersection options now. They are working towards a presentation to council in May. I believe that date was TBD. I can look now to see if that's been scheduled since we got our update last week. But essentially this is moving forward, and it was all it's at the bottom of the agenda packet. So we really wanted to just hold this space for any questions from the commission, comments, etc.
One quick question. When I was reading through the reading through the note about that was sent with the materials for today, I couldn't find any like visualizations of the types of intersections that they're looking to include. And is there a place that we could go to look at those or to find those?
Yes, thank you so much, Commissioner White. So on the at the bottom of that memo, there is a link to the City Council work session, and that takes you to the recording. On that, as well as the second link takes you kind of to the presentation, and you'll be able to see on there essentially item 5. I can try and pull it up really fast. We'll see if it's fast, but basically it's all in there. If you go to the second link, it takes you to the agenda packet, and that has these visualizations, but let me see if I can pull it up real fast.
Well, if there's a link to it, I can just pull it up later. It's fine. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I have it here for us quick, so it was pretty fast. Let me share my screen real fast. I do think it certainly gives color to this conversation as opposed to just me. So this was option 5. So within that memo, they talk sort of about 5, and then they talk about 5B, I think, and what staff continue to discover to look through. So what they call this a traditional intersection, and the idea is that there's essentially 5 lanes on each leg. And so that is the option that council voted to go forward with, but with some other considerations for adding turn lanes, etc., to improve the traffic flow. So that's kind of the first. I don't believe that there is a rendering available of option 5B, because again, that is still in progress by the staff, and looking at that, I am going to check the project website right now, because that ideally would provide a little bit more information. And I did check too on the working calendar. This item has not been scheduled yet to go for council, but I know they are aiming for May, so it will likely be late May.
Thanks.
Of course. So Chair McCain, that's all I had. And it's really up for the commission for discussion, questions, comments, etc.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. I thought you were looking something up. Sorry. Are there any
Oh,
other
well,
questions, commissioners?
I guess I do have one other question. In the agenda, it was indicated that you might be looking for us to vote on something. Is that still the case?
That's really up to the commission. If you wanted to vote to send comments to council, right, about these different options or about the process, we just wanted to hold that open as an option. If that's where the discussion went, we wanted to make sure it was agendized.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, any additional questions or comments, commissioners? Okay, thank you so much, Jenny. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now to item 7, which is our to and from any community events or other announcements. And I think Marissa has one.
Me too. Thank you very much. So I'm sure you all saw all the notifications from me. I apologize for any confusion that may have caused, but all of us staff liaisons are really excited. We are getting ready to have hybrid meetings for commissions. So as the Sustainability Commission discussed in the fall, we will be moving forward with hybrid meetings. The city will not be moving backwards, so there will always be that virtual option for the commission. Right now we have I believe it's the staff conference room that was available for us to reserve. So we've got that reserved for future meetings. I will be in touch with future things more details as we get a little closer, as far as exactly where that is and everything. But I did want to give you a heads up. So staff will be prepared for that in our June meeting. So our June meeting will be hybrid. And that is the big update. Please let me know if you have any questions, but that is the main thing I wanted to update you on.
All right, thanks, Marissa. Do we have any other to and from? Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
Thank you. And I apologize, I am on my phone. I was at a Citizen Bond Committee meeting and then just jumped right on over after leaving that meeting. But this Saturday, and excuse me, the Thorpe Park Annex public scoping meeting is going to be held at the annex, the complex where the sustainability offices are. And please come on down between 11 and 2 o'clock if you want to learn about the various options that are being considered and discussed with the community as a result of all the public outreach that is being conducted by consultants, SDR. Recommendations will be presented to the city council, I believe in September. So if you would like to have a voice in what is recommended to the city council for the future use of the Thorpe Park Annex, please come on down on Saturday to learn about the variety of options that have been developed through conversations with community members and so forth. Thank you.
And Nicole, is that something that's you need to be there at 11 to 2, or is it something where you can drop in? How does that work?
I am not the coordinator. You know what I think would be helpful is if I could forward on the flyer, but my sense is that there is going to be some framing, but it is designed for people just to be able to stop by and walk around the different areas and learn about some ideas that have been shared. So I don't think you have to be there the full time or get there exactly at 11. But let me track down the flyer from the organizers and make sure that everyone on the commission gets that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Marissa, you have another one?
Yeah.
I do. I will keep this really quick. I just realized I wasn't sure if I've updated the whole commission on this. After Jake and Steve had such a great time giving the staff update at our last meeting, we are really hoping to get more of our staff engaged and practice presenting to the commission so they can really understand the work you do. And then they are the actual ones doing a lot of this work. So they each get to present on their own program areas and you're not just hearing from me all the time. So I wanted to make sure all of you knew about that. I also want to give you a heads up that we've been working with our Neighborhood Sustainability Grant recipients from last year's second cycle, and their final reports will be in the next meeting in May. So I just wanted to give you a heads up for that.
Okay, thanks, Marissa. Any more to and from? Okay, let's move to item 8, which is future agenda item requests. Commissioners, anything that you'd like to see on future agendas? All right, I'm not hearing any, so that sends us to item number 9, which is adjournment. So the meeting is now adjourned. Have a great month.
Thanks, everyone. Y'all
Bye,
take
everyone.
care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.